Hello, and welcome to Midnight Mindset. If you found your way here, you're probably searching for something clarity in the chaos, peace in the noise, or maybe just a moment to breathe in a world that never slows down. Asterisk the hidden fears that shape your life. Imagine waking up every morning and making decisions without realizing that fear is pulling the strings behind the scenes. You might think you're choosing your career, relationships, or daily habits based on logic and personal preference. But what if those choices were subtly influenced by primal instincts buried deep in your subconscious? These ancient fears, rooted in our evolutionary past, still dictate how we react to danger, form social bonds, and navigate uncertainty. From the fear of rejection to the instinctual need for control, these psychological remnants shape everything from the way we communicate to the risks we're willing to take. But here's the unsettling truth. Most people don't even realize they're being controlled by these invisible forces. They assume their actions are driven by free will, when in reality, their behavior is often a product of deeply ingrained survival mechanisms. Think about the last time you hesitated before speaking up in a meeting, held back from pursuing a dream, or avoided confrontation because it felt too risky. What if those moments weren't just about caution, but rather echoes of fears that have been passed down through generations? Fear of abandonment, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. These aren't just abstract emotions. They're powerful motivators that influence our decisions in ways we rarely recognize. Even in modern society, where physical threats are far less common than in the past, these fears persist, shaping our thoughts and behaviors in profound ways. So ask yourself, how much of your life is truly under your control, and how much is dictated by primitive instincts that you never consciously chose? The evolutionary roots of fear didn't emerge in a vacuum. It was forged in the crucible of survival, a necessary adaptation that allowed early humans to navigate a world fraught with danger. In prehistoric times, threats were omnipresent, from prowling predators to unpredictable environmental changes. To survive, our ancestors developed acute sensitivity to potential dangers, which meant that fear became an essential tool for staying alive. Those who could quickly recognize signs of danger, like rustling leaves that might indicate a lurking predator, were more likely to escape harm and pass on their genes. This evolutionary imperative laid the groundwork for what we now understand as the fight-or-flight response, a physiological reaction that prepares the body to either confront or flee from perceived threats. As societies evolved and transitioned, from nomadic lifestyles to settled communities, the nature of threats changed. Yet the underlying fear mechanisms remained intact. Instead of facing wild animals, humans began to grapple with social dynamics, competition for resources, and the complexities of interpersonal relationships. Fear of rejection and social exclusion became critical for maintaining group cohesion, which was vital for survival. Those who were accepted within their tribes had better access to food, protection, and support during hardships. Thus, the fear of being ostracized took root as a significant emotional driver, compelling individuals to conform to social norms and avoid behaviors that could lead to isolation. This evolution of fear also intertwined with the development of cognitive abilities. As human brains grew more complex, so did the capacity for abstract thought and future planning. Consequently, fears began to extend beyond immediate physical dangers to encompass existential concerns: fear of failure, fear of the unknown, and fear of death itself. These anxieties were not merely reactions to present threats, but anticipatory responses to possible future scenarios. For instance, the fear of failure may have originated from the understanding that mistakes could lead to loss of status or resources, which could jeopardize one's place in the community. Moreover, transmission of knowledge through generations played a crucial role in embedding these fears into cultural narratives. Myths, stories, and rituals often served to reinforce collective fears, teaching younger generations to be wary of certain behaviors or environments. This cultural reinforcement ensured that primitive fears persisted long after their original contexts faded away, adapting to new societal structures while retaining their core essence. In essence, The evolutionary origins of fear illustrate how deeply intertwined our emotional responses are with our survival instincts. While modern life has significantly altered the landscape of threats we face today, the legacy of these ancient fears continues to shape our behaviors, decisions, and interactions in subtle yet profound ways. Understanding this historical context can illuminate the reasons behind our contemporary anxieties and empower us to confront them more effectively. Asterisk fear of rejection, the invisible chain. Imagine it's walking into a room full of strangers, feeling your heart race, palms sweat, and mind go blank, not because of any real threat, but simply because you're afraid of being judged or excluded. This is the power of the fear of rejection, a primal emotion that once ensured our ancestors remained part of a tribe for survival. Yet, in today's world, this fear manifests in ways that can hold us back from forming meaningful connections. It's advancing in our careers and even expressing our true selves. It operates silently, influencing our decisions without us ever realizing its grip. Consider the workplace a space where confidence and initiative are often rewarded. How many opportunities have been lost because someone hesitated to speak up, fearing ridicule or dismissal? A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that employees who fear rejection are more likely to suppress their ideas, leading to missed innovations and reduced productivity. This isn't just about shyness, about a deeply ingrained belief that standing out could result in social exile. Even in leadership roles, the fear of rejection can prevent managers from making bold decisions. As they worry about backlash or losing the approval of their peers, beyond professional settings, this fear seeps into personal relationships, often dictating how we interact with others. Many people avoid vulnerability in friendships and romantic partnerships, convinced that revealing their true thoughts or emotions might push others away. Psychologist Brené Brown, in her research on human connection, emphasizes that shame and fear of rejection are among the biggest barriers to authentic relationships. She argues that the desire to be liked often overrides the need for genuine intimacy, leaving people trapped in superficial interactions rather than forging deeper bonds, even in everyday conversations. This fear shapes our words and actions. How often do you filter what you say to avoid offending someone? Or hold back criticism, even when it's constructive, because you fear conflict? These micro-decisions accumulate over time, reinforcing a cycle of self-censorship that limits personal growth. It's not just about avoiding rejection. It's about the unconscious belief that acceptance must be earned through compliance, rather. Then authenticity. Perhaps the most insidious aspect of this fear is how it distorts our perception of reality. We tend to overestimate the likelihood of rejection while underestimating our ability to cope with it. Our Business Review article highlights how people often anticipate harsh judgment when sharing opinions, only to find that others are far more accepting than expected. This cognitive distortion creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. We avoid risks, seize opportunities, and reinforce the very insecurities we fear. So the question remains, how much of your life is shaped by the silent dread of being rejected? More importantly, what would change if you learned to challenge that fear instead of letting it dictate your choices? The fear of abandonment, a shadow over every relationship. Picture this. You send a text message to someone important to you, a friend, a partner, or even a colleague, and minutes turn into hours with no reply. Your mind begins to spiral. Did I say something wrong? Are they upset with me? Have they decided I'm not worth their time anymore? These anxious thoughts, though seemingly trivial in the grand scheme of life, stem from one of the most fundamental fears embedded in the human psyche, the fear of abandonment. This fear, once crucial for survival, still holds immense power over our emotions and relationships today. Historically, being abandoned meant near certain death. Early humans relied on their tribes for protection, sustenance, and companionship. Those who were cast out faced exposure to predators, starvation, and isolation. As a result, the brain evolved to treat social exclusion as a life-threatening event, triggering intense emotional distress whenever there was a hint of rejection. Even in modern times, this fear persists, manifesting in ways that can distort our perceptions and behaviors in relationships. Beyond intimate relationships, this fear influences how we interact with friends, colleagues, and even acquaintances. People may hesitate to voice their true opinions or set boundaries, fearing that doing so will cause others to withdraw affection or support. A 2019 study published in Personality and Individual Differences found that individuals with high abandonment anxiety are more likely to tolerate toxic relationships, prioritizing the presence of a connection over its quality. This dynamic explains why some people remain in unsatisfying partnerships or jobs, clinging to familiarity rather than risking the unknown. The fear of abandonment also plays a role in decision-making, particularly in major life transitions. Moving to a new city, switching careers, or ending a relationship can all trigger deep-seated fears of being left alone. Some people avoid making bold life choices altogether, opting for stability over growth simply because they fear that change might sever existing bonds. Others become overly dependent on specific individuals, believing that losing that person would leave them adrift with no support system. But perhaps the most insidious consequence of this fear is how it distorts our sense of self-worth. When we equate being loved with being needed, we begin to believe that our value lies in how much others rely on us. This mindset can lead to codependency, where individuals sacrifice their own needs to ensure they remain indispensable to others. In extreme cases, it can even drive people to stay in harmful situations, convinced that being mistreated is better than being alone. So, ask yourself, how often does the fear of abandonment influence your choices? Do you stay in relationships longer than you should? Do you suppress your true feelings to avoid rocking the boat? Recognizing this fear is the first step toward reclaiming agency over your emotional well-being. Fear of failure, the silent saboteur. If the greatest obstacle between you and success isn't external circumstances, but your own mind, the fear of failure is a powerful force, often disguised as caution or humility, yet it can quietly sabotage ambitions before they ever take flight. Consider the countless dreams deferred, projects abandoned, and opportunities ignored, not because they were impossible, but because the mere possibility of falling short was too terrifying to face. This fear doesn't always announce itself with dramatic panic attacks or overt avoidance. Sometimes it whispers in the quiet corners of your mind, convincing you that playing it safe is the only way forward. Psychologists have long studied the impact of fear of failure, identifying it as a key contributor to procrastination, perfectionism, and risk aversion. According to Dr. Carol Dweck, a leading researcher on motivation and achievement, individuals with a fixed mindset, those who believe intelligence and talent are innate and unchangeably, are more prone to fear failure. To them, setbacks aren't just temporary obstacles, they're proof of inadequacy. This mindset creates a paradox. The more effort you invest, the more painful failure becomes, making it easier to avoid trying altogether. Take the case of entrepreneurs, whose success hinges on taking calculated risks. Despite their ambition, many struggle with the fear of failure, often hesitating to launch a business until they feel perfectly prepared. A 2017 Harvard Business Review article highlighted that nearly half of startup founders admitted to delaying their ventures due to fear of financial ruin or public embarrassment. Some even abandoned promising ideas altogether, convinced that failure would define them forever. The irony: most successful entrepreneurs experience multiple failures before achieving breakthroughs. Yet, the fear of failure often prevents people from even stepping onto that path. This fear extends beyond entrepreneurship. It's infiltrating education, careers, and personal goals. Students may avoid challenging courses, convinced they won't measure up. Employees might decline promotions or leadership roles, fearing they'll be exposed as incompetent. Artists may keep their work hidden, terrified of negative feedback. In each case, the fear of failure acts as a self-imposed barrier, limiting potential before it can be realized. Perhaps the most damaging aspect of this fear is its ability to distort reality. Research shows that people tend to overestimate the consequences of failure while underestimating their resilience. A study published in the Journal of Behavioral Decision Making found that participants consistently predicted catastrophic outcomes, from failure career destruction. Permanent reputational damage, yet, when those failures actually occurred, most reported minimal long-term impact. This cognitive bias reinforces a cycle of fear, keeping people locked in comfort zones where progress is stifled. So, ask yourself, what have you given up on because the risk of failure seemed too great? And more importantly, what could you achieve if you stopped letting fear dictate your choices? The fear of the unknown. Why uncertainty feels like danger. Imagine standing at the edge of a dark forest, sure of what lies ahead. There's no sign of danger, no tangible threat, yet your pulse quickens, your breath shortens, and every instinct tells you to turn back. This is the fear of the unknown, an ancient mechanism designed to protect you from unseen dangers. Prehistoric times venturing into unfamiliar territory carried real risks, undiscovered predators, poisonous plants, or treacherous terrain. Today, however, this fear often misfires, transforming harmless uncertainties into paralyzing anxieties. Whether it's a job interview, a new relationship, or even a simple decision like ordering an unfamiliar dish at a restaurant, the fear of the unknown can hijack rational thought and prevent us from moving forward. Neuroscientists have identified that the brain processes uncertainty similarly to actual threats. A study published in Nature Neuroscience found that when people face ambiguous situations, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, activates as strongly as it does in the presence of clear dangers. This means that not knowing what will happen can feel just as dangerous as knowing something bad is about to occur. Unlike known threats, which allow for preparation and strategy, uncertainty offers no blueprint for response. Leaving the brain in a heightened state of vigilance, this fear manifests in various aspects of daily life, often unnoticed but profoundly influential. Take career decisions, for example. Many people remain in stagnant jobs not because they're content, but because the alternative feels too uncertain. The familiar routine, even if unfulfilling, provides a sense of control. Whereas stepping into the unknown, pursuing a passion, starting a business, or changing industries feels like a gamble. Similarly, in relationships, the fear of the unknown can prevent people from committing to long-term partnerships or exploring new connections. The prospect of navigating unfamiliar emotions, unexpected conflicts, or an undefined future can be enough to keep someone stuck in solitude or an unsatisfying relationship. Even mundane choices are affected by this fear. Think about how often you stick to the same brand, the same route to work, or the same dinner order simply because deviating from the norm feels uncomfortable. These micro-decisions accumulate, reinforcing a pattern of avoidance that limits personal growth. The brain, wired to conserve energy and avoid unnecessary risks, interprets deviation from the familiar as potentially dangerous even when logic dictates otherwise. Perhaps the most insidious effect of this fear is how it fuels irrational thinking. In the absence of concrete information, the mind fills in the blanks with worst-case scenarios. Delayed email response becomes evidence of rejection. A minor disagreement with a friend signals impending betrayal and a fluctuation in the stock market triggers visions of financial ruin. This tendency, known as catastrophizing, magnifies uncertainty into catastrophe, reinforcing the belief that the unknown is inherently dangerous. So, ask yourself, how often do you choose the predictable path simply because the alternative feels too uncertain? And what opportunities might you be missing by allowing the fear of the unknown to dictate your decisions? The fear of death, the ultimate unseen force at the core of many of our deepest anxieties, lies an undeniable truth. We are all going to die. It is the one certainty in life, yet it remains the most feared. The fear of death, or thanatophobia, is not just about the end itself, but about the unknown that surrounds it. Will there be pain? Will I be remembered? Is there anything beyond death? Or does consciousness simply cease? These questions, unanswered and often unspoken, shape the way we live our lives in ways we rarely acknowledge. Psychologists have long studied the impact of mortality awareness on human behavior, Terror management theory, TMT, developed by psychologists Jeff Greenberg, Sheldon Solomon, and Tom Pyshinsky, suggests that the awareness of our inevitable death drives much of human culture, from religious beliefs to artistic expression. According to TMT, humans manage their fear of death by constructing worldviews that provide meaning and a sense of significance. This explains why people cling to ideologies, national identities, and social hierarchies, because believing that one's life has lasting importance helps to mitigate the terror of non-existence. Beyond shaping cultural narratives, the fear of death also influences individual decisions in profound ways. Some people adopt reckless behaviors, seeking thrills and sensations to feel more alive, while others become obsessively cautious, avoiding risks to prolong their time on Earth. In medicine, studies show that patients diagnosed with terminal illnesses often experience a phenomenon called death anxiety, which can manifest as depression, aggression, or obsessive attempts to regain control through medical interventions. Even those not facing imminent death may unconsciously alter their behaviors, avoiding difficult conversations, delaying life-changing decisions, or refusing to let go of unhealthy relationships because the idea of finality is too overwhelming. To accept the fear of death also fuels superstitions and spiritual beliefs. Across cultures, elaborate rituals and traditions have emerged to help people make sense of mortality. Whether through religious doctrines promising an afterlife or pseudoscientific claims of immortality through technology, the human mind seeks comfort in the illusion of continuity. Even those who claim not to believe in an afterlife may find themselves drawn to philosophies that suggest their legacy will endure, whether through children, creative works, or contributions to society. Perhaps the most striking aspect of this fear is how it distorts our perception of time. Knowing that life is finite can either motivate us to live fully or paralyze us with regret and indecision. Some spend years chasing material success, convinced that achievements will grant them a form of immortality, while others retreat into isolation, fearing that the closer they get to living authentically, the faster time will slip away. So ask yourself, how much of your life is shaped by the fear of death? What would change if you embraced the inevitability of your own existence rather than resisting it? Breaking free, strategies to confront primitive fears now that we've explored the deep-rooted fears that subtly govern our lives. The next step is learning how to break free from their grasp. Awareness is the first and most crucial step. Recognizing that these fears exist and understanding how they influence your decisions empowers you to take control. But awareness alone isn't enough. True transformation requires intentional strategies to reframe your thoughts, build resilience, shift your perspective on fear itself. One of the most effective ways to confront these fears is through cognitive restructuring, a psychological technique used in cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT) to identify and challenge distorted thinking patterns. Begin by examining the narratives you tell yourself. If you fear rejection, ask, is my fear based on reality, or am I assuming the worst-case scenario? Often, our minds create exaggerated versions of potential outcomes, feeding our anxieties unnecessarily. By questioning these assumptions and replacing them with more balanced perspectives, you can gradually reduce their power over you. Another powerful approach is exposure therapy, which involves systematically confronting feared situations in a controlled manner. If the fear of failure has kept you from taking risks, start small, volunteer for a project at work, share an idea in a meeting, or pursue a hobby you've been hesitant to try. Each small victory builds confidence and proves to yourself that failure isn't as devastating as your mind makes it seem. Over time, repeated exposure diminishes the emotional charge associated with fear, allowing you to act more freely. Mindfulness and meditation practices also play a crucial role in managing fear. Studies have shown that mindfulness reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, while increasing prefrontal cortex activity, which is responsible for rational thought. By practicing present moment awareness, you learn to observe your fears without immediately reacting to them. Techniques such as deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and guided visualization can help you stay grounded when anxiety arises. Building a strong support network is equally important. Talking openly about your fears with trusted friends, mentors, or therapists can provide valuable insight and encouragement. Sometimes simply verbalizing your anxieties can diminish their intensity. Additionally, surrounding yourself with people who challenge and uplift you fosters a sense of security, making it easier to take risks and step outside your comfort zone. Finally, reframing fear as a source of growth rather than a threat can transform your relationship with it. Fear is not inherently negative. It serves as a signal, urging you to pay attention and prepare for challenges. Instead of viewing fear as something to eliminate, see it as an indicator that you're on the verge of meaningful change. Discomfort, rather than avoiding it, allows you to expand your capabilities and unlock new possibilities. By implementing these strategies, you begin to reclaim agency over your life. Fear no longer dictates your choices. Instead, it becomes a guide, helping you navigate challenges with clarity and courage. The journey won't be easy, but each step forward weakens the grip of primitive fears, paving the way for a more empowered, fearless existence. Living beyond fear, the path forward confronting. The primitive fears that have silently governed your life is not just about overcoming anxiety. It's about reclaiming your autonomy. Every hesitation, every avoidance, every compromise made out of fear has subtly shaped the course of your life, often without your conscious awareness. Now that you've uncovered these hidden influences, the next step is not merely acknowledging them, but actively reshaping your mindset to live beyond their constraints. Start by recognizing that fear is not the enemy, it is a signal, a remnant of survival instincts that once protected you. However, in the modern world, these instincts often misfire, amplifying threats that no longer pose real danger. Instead of suppressing fear, learn to engage with it critically. Ask yourself, is this fear serving me, or is it holding me back? By distinguishing between protective instincts and outdated anxieties, gain the power to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Take action in small but meaningful ways. If the fear of rejection has kept you from speaking up, challenge yourself to voice your opinion in low-stakes situations. If the fear of failure has prevented you from pursuing opportunities, commit to one small risk this week: submitting an application, pitching an idea, or trying something new. Each step forward, no matter how minor, weakens the grip of fear and reinforces your capacity to grow. Most importantly, embrace discomfort as a catalyst for expansion. Growth does not happen in the absence of fear. It happens in spite of it. Every time you choose courage over comfort, you redefine what is possible for yourself. You are not bound by the fears of your ancestors. You have the power to rewrite your narrative, to live not in reaction to fear, but in alignment with your true potential.